This is the VOA Special English Agriculture Report. Some people say broccoli looks like small trees and cauliflower like gathered clouds. They think broccoli is only green and cauliflower is only white. But these nutritious vegetables also come in more colorful versions. One kind of cauliflower, for example, is orange, and broccoli can be purple. Broccoli and cauliflower are among the most nutritious vegetables. They are high in vitamin C, fiber, and other nutrients. And they contain substances that are believed to fight cancer. They belong to the cabbage or cole family. Other members include cabbage, collards, Brussels sprouts, kale, and kohlrabi. Agriculture experts at the Ohio State University Extension say broccoli and cauliflower grow best in cooler climates. They suggest planting them where the average daily temperature is between 18 and 26 degrees Celsius. Both crops grow best in sunshine and fertile, moist soil, but water should not be standing on the soil. Using mulch helps keep the ground moist and cool. Mulch also helps feed the soil and controls weeds. Broccoli and cauliflower can grow outdoors from seed or as small plants. Vincent Fritz of the University of Minnesota Extension suggests that results are far better with small plants. He says the vegetables should be planted so that they can be harvested before the hottest weather. Experts differ about how to space the plantings in the ground. One suggestion is to plant them in rows about 3/4 of a meter to nearly 1 meter apart. Then place broccoli plants about 20 to 30 centimeters apart in the rows. Set cauliflower plants 38 to about 46 centimeters from each other in the rows. As it grows, a cauliflower plant will start to form a head. The head contains flower buds that are tightly closed and at least 2 leaves wrapping it. Gather and tie the leaves over the head and do not wait for the buds to separate before harvesting. Harvest the center flower bud cluster of broccoli when it reaches the size you want and while the buds are still tightly together. Cut the main stem about 12 to 15 centimeters below the head. You can eat broccoli and cauliflower raw, or you can steam them in a small amount of water or stir-fry them in a small amount of oil. The less time they cook, the better. And that's the VOA Special English Agriculture Report. This is the VOA Special English Health Report. Sleeping sickness is a deadly disease that infects about 60,000 people in Africa each year. Now, scientists in Scotland say they may have found a new treatment. Their findings are in the journal Science. Sleeping sickness is spread by the bite of the tsetse fly. The insect can carry a parasite that infects the central nervous system. First, the infection causes fever, headache, itchy skin, and weakness. Then, when the parasite enters the brain, it causes more serious problems. People suffer seizures and thinking problems, and they sleep for extended periods. If the disease is not treated, it almost always kills the victim. Paul Wyatt works at the Drug Discovery for Tropical Diseases program at the University of Dundee. Mr. Wyatt led the study. He says the research identified a weakness in the parasite. The weakness is an enzyme called N-myristoyltransferase, or NMT. The parasite needs NMT to survive. The researchers developed a mixture of chemicals that interfered with the performance of the enzyme. They tried it in test tubes containing the parasites. As a result, the parasites stopped reproducing. The scientists also tested the treatment on laboratory mice with sleeping sickness. They gave them the chemical compound by mouth. The scientists said the infection disappeared. Now, Paul Wyatt says a drug based on the research could be ready for testing in humans within 18 months. Currently, medicine for sleeping sickness requires a series of injections that are costly and painful. Hospital stays are also needed, and the side effects of the treatment can be serious, sometimes even causing death. Francois Chapuis is a specialist in neglected tropical diseases with the international group Doctors Without Borders. He says a less costly, easy-to-use medicine for sleeping sickness is badly needed. He says a simpler treatment, taken by mouth, would be the best. And that's the VOA Special English Health Report. Transcripts and MP3s of our reports are on our website, voaspecialenglish.com. You can also comment on our programs. You can also find us on Twitter and YouTube. And you can join the community at the new VOA Learning English fan page on Facebook. We're at VOA Learning English Special English.
This is the VOA Special English Development Report. When you have a question about something, where do you go? For many people, the answer is simple. They go online to a search engine like Google or Yahoo. But what about people in rural or underdeveloped areas who may have no way to get on the internet? A business and international development consultant in California, Rose Schumann, wanted to find an answer for them too. Her solution is Question Box. Question Box is a service that provides answers free of charge for people who cannot search the internet directly. They might not be able to read, or they simply have no access. Question Box began 2 years ago in India. People use a metal call box with a push-to-talk button to connect to a live operator. Rose Schumann explains. You just push a button, a big green button, and that will connect you directly to our operators who are sitting in front of computers and speak your language. And you can ask them any sort of question you want, and they'll look it up in English or in Hindi or whatever the main language is and translate the answer right back for you. The service is currently offered in 2 villages. The latest version of the box uses mobile phone technology and solar panels in case the electrical power fails. Rose Schumann says the aim was to make the box as easy as possible for users. In April, Question Box expanded to Uganda. 40 community workers with mobile phones connect villagers to call center operators in Kampala. The community workers go around telling people about the service. They wear t-shirts that say, "Ask me." But internet service in Uganda proved slow and undependable. So Question Box teamed up with a local technology company to store information on a local server. That way, the researchers in Kampala can quickly search the database for answers. Question Box is a project of Open Mind, a non-profit organization founded by Rose Schumann. She says Question Box is working to expand by offering its software through partnerships. In Uganda, Question Box formed a partnership with the Grameen Foundation. Grameen had money from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation to bring agricultural information to rural farmers. But users also ask about current events and many other subjects. And that's the VOA Special English Development Report.
This is the VOA Special English Development Report. Delegates from around the world have agreed on a new plan to end the worst kinds of child labor by 2016. More than 450 delegates from 80 countries approved the plan at the Global Child Labor Conference. It was held in The Hague, the Netherlands, in May, a week before the International Labor Organization released its third global report on child labor. The report said there are still 215 million child laborers in the world. 115 million of them are working in some of the worst kinds of child labor. These are often dangerous to their health and safety. The ILO notes that child labor is decreasing worldwide, but it is decreasing at a much slower rate than 4 years ago. The organization also warned that the global economic crisis could slow progress even more. It called for an increase in global efforts in order to reach the goals for ending the worst forms of child labor. Representatives at the conference talked about what actions need to be taken. Patrick Quinn is with the ILO's International Program on the Elimination of Child Labor. He says there is clear evidence of the kinds of policies and programming interventions that can be most effective in combating the problem. Mr. Quinn said these include governments working to end the barriers that stop poor families from getting education for their children. And they include governments putting in place the right education policies. Mr. Quinn says efforts to combat the problem must also be increased at the community level. He said the ILO is working with local civic organizations to change opinions about child labor. The ILO report notes that several areas of the world are making important progress. They include Latin America, the Caribbean, and South Asia. The least progress has been made in Africa. Mr. Quinn says world leaders will discuss the issue later this year at a meeting on the United Nations Millennium Development Goals. He says there is a close link between these goals and combating child labor. And that's the VOA Special English Development Report. Transcripts, MP3s, and podcasts of our programs are at voaspecialenglish.com. You can also comment on this and other programs, and you can join us on Facebook and Twitter at VOA Learning English. This is the VOA Special English Agriculture Report. American farmers first planted genetically engineered crops in 1996. Today, 80% of the cropland for soybeans, maize, and cotton in the United States is transgenic. Genetic engineering adds or changes genes in a plant to produce desired qualities. The United States is one of 25 countries where farmers planted genetically engineered crops in 2009. An agricultural biotechnology group says planting decreased in Europe, but the amount of cropland planted with the crops rose by an estimated 7% worldwide. The National Research Council, part of the National Academies in Washington, recently published a study. The study examined how genetically engineered crops have affected farming in the United States. It found that many farmers have better harvests, better weed control, and fewer losses from insect damage compared to traditional crops. Larissa Wolfenbarger is a University of Nebraska biology professor and a member of the committee that wrote the report. She says they found that genetically engineered crops can be better for the environment. For example, she noted that crops designed to resist damage by glyphosate need fewer pesticides that are more toxic to the soil. Glyphosate is a chemical used in Roundup and other weed-killing products. But some farmers have used so much glyphosate that a number of kinds of weeds can now resist it. David Irvin of Portland State University in Oregon led the committee that wrote the report. Professor Irvin says this means that some farmers are again using the more toxic herbicides to control weeds. He says the problem needs immediate attention. Earlier this year, a professor at the University of Western Australia commented on the overuse of glyphosate. Stephen Powles wrote about it in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences in the United States. He said, glyphosate is as important in worldwide food production as penicillin is in medicine for fighting disease. He called for better use of glyphosate-resistant crop technology. And that's the VOA Special English Agriculture Report. You can comment on our reports at our website, voaspecialenglish.com. You can also get our stories on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube at VOA Learning English. This is the VOA Special English Agriculture Report. Mulch is material spread over soil. It protects against wind and rain damage. It can also limit weed growth. Finding materials for organic mulch can be easy. Small pieces of tree bark or cut-up leaves can be used. Some people use grass cuttings or newspapers. Others use inorganic material such as shredded rubber from tires. Mulch is important for home gardens but also to farms. Farmers may keep the remains of maize or other crops on top of the soil. The crop waste creates mulch. This practice is called conservation tillage. Organic mulch protects but also improves the condition of the soil. It provides nutrients for plants. It also provides a good environment for earthworms and other helpful organisms in the soil. As the mulch breaks down, it provides material that keeps the soil from getting hard. This improves the growth of roots and increases the movement of water through the soil. The mulch also improves the ability of the soil to hold moisture. Experts generally suggest laying mulch to a depth of about 10 centimeters. If finer materials are used, such as cut grass, the depth should be 2.5 to 7.5 centimeters. The same is true if compost is used for mulch. Too much mulch can restrict oxygen and water flow to the soil and harm roots. Also, do not build up mulch around the base of trees or plants like a volcano. This could lead to disease or insect damage. Some gardeners use leaf mulch, fine particles of leaves, instead of wood mulch around trees, especially young trees. Leaf mulch can also be used in flower beds. Mulching is one of the best things people can do for their gardens. It helps keep the soil from getting dry, so it reduces the need for watering. It also limits temperature changes in the soil. Mulch forms a barrier between the soil and the air. As a result, mulched soil will be cooler in the summertime, and in winter it may not freeze as deeply as areas without mulch. Mulch can be added late in autumn to help moderate the effects of winter weather. The best time is after the ground has frozen, but before the coldest weather arrives. Spreading mulch before the ground has frozen may attract small animals searching for a warm place to spend the winter. And that's the VOA Special English Agriculture Report. Archives of our reports, including last week's explanation of compost, can be found at voaspecialenglish.com. This is the VOA Special English Agriculture Report. Grafting is a way to produce plants from pieces of existing plants instead of seeds. Branches or buds are cut from one plant and placed on a related kind of plant. The branch or bud that is grafted is called the scion. The plant that accepts the graft is called the rootstock. Grafting can join scions with desirable qualities to rootstock that is strong and resists disease and insects. A graft can be cut several ways. One way is a cleft graft. It requires a scion with several buds on it. The bottom of the scion is cut in the shape of the letter V. The scion is then securely placed into a cut on the rootstock. Material called a growth medium is put on the joint to keep it from getting dry and to help the two plants grow together. Many fruits and nuts have been improved through grafting. Flowers can also be improved this way. Some common fruit trees, such as sweet cherries and McIntosh apples, have to be grafted. Grafting is also used to produce seedless fruits like navel oranges and seedless watermelons. Grafting continues to hold an important place in agriculture, even in an age of modern genetic engineering. Recently, we told you about a study of genetically engineered crops and how they have affected farming in the United States. The study found that many farmers have better harvests, better weed control, and fewer losses from insect damage compared to traditional crops. Our story brought a number of comments, including this one from Odalberto in Brazil. He wrote that in his town the population depends on agriculture and transgenic crops. He wrote that it is true that such crops can have higher output with less cost, but he added, no one knows the consequences that will have on soil fertility and the human body. Only the future will tell us the truth about transgenic food. Christian in France expressed a different concern. He wrote, the big problem of the transgenic seeds is that they are the monopoly of big companies. The small farmers cannot reproduce any more seeds by themselves. And Joom from Thailand wrote, I don't care where the crops come from, natural plants or genetic engineering, as long as we can produce food enough for people. And that's the VOA Special English Agriculture Report. You can comment on our stories and find transcripts, MP3s, and podcasts at voaspecialenglish.com. This is the VOA Special English Development Report. The World Bank says most developing countries have made important progress toward the United Nations Millennium Development Goals. In April, the international lender released its yearly World Development Indicators. Hundreds of indicators are used to measure progress in areas such as education, health, poverty, the environment, and trade. One of the Millennium Development Goals is to reduce by half the number of people living in extreme poverty by 2015. Out of 87 countries with data available, 49 seem likely to reach that goal. Extreme poverty is defined as earning less than $1 a day. Another goal is to make education available to all young children. The report shows that in 2007, 7 out of 10 children lived in developing countries that had met or were close to meeting that goal. Also, 39 countries have achieved or are likely to achieve the goal of reducing child death rates. The target is a 2/3 reduction by 2015. And the report from the World Bank shows the first reduction in AIDS-related deaths. But even with all the progress, there is still a long way to go to reach all 8 goals approved by world leaders 10 years ago. This is especially true in sub-Saharan Africa, which falls behind on all of the goals. Eric Swanson is a program manager for the World Development Indicators. He said there was a decade or more of very slow economic progress in the 1990s in Africa. There were civil wars and other disruptions. And there was poor governance in many countries that has not permitted the economy to grow and has not allowed poor people to share in the benefits of growth. Still, he points to some hopeful signs, including a large reduction in the child death rate in Malawi. The World Bank also launched a new open data initiative. The bank will make its data on living conditions around the world publicly available. Officials say this will make it easier to measure the effects of policies and develop new solutions to help the world's poor. And that's the VOA Special English Development Report. You can comment on our programs and learn about other development issues at voaspecialenglish.com. You can find transcripts, MP3s, and podcasts. You can also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and iTunes at VOA Learning English.